Hey there folks, welcome to the channel and welcome to Celebrate Sausage. This episode was sponsored by Kotai Knives. If you're looking to upgrade your knives but you're not quite sure whether you want to go German or Japanese, you don't have to settle because Kotai Knives have combined the best of both worlds.
Japanese sharpness with Western robustness. These are razor-sharp knives that are extremely durable. Check out Kotai's incredible selection of finely crafted knives and get yours today.
There's going to be a link in the description box below with the coupon code 2GUYS for an immediate discount off your order. Thanks a lot, Kotai, for sponsoring this video. Now let's talk about today's episode, Italian Mortadella. Mortadella is quite possibly one of the most iconic sausages to come out of Italy. It is known across the globe and it is quite spectacular. This is an all-pork emulsified sausage that can often be found with pieces of fat sprinkled throughout. Pistachios or peppercorn can also be added. And in today's video, I'm going to take you through every step so that you can make it at home. Let's make mortadella.
Big day today, guys. We're making classic mortadella. I'm glad you could join us. Be sure to check the recipe link in the description box below. It's going to have all the ingredients, all the spices, all the instructions. And as much as I'd like to say this is a very easy sausage to make, it's actually a little technically challenging, and you do have to have the right pieces of equipment. Otherwise, it's going to be a disaster. So we're going to be working with lean pork, pork back fat, and we are going to be separating some of the back fat so we can blanch it and get that classic marbled look for our mortadella. Now, this piece right here, we are going to be setting it to the side, and I'll show you what we're going to do with that, but we're going to be adding that to the end of the recipe. This fat, though, we're going to go ahead and cut up into small pieces because we're going to be processing this meat and fat in two separate stages. The first stage, we're going to grind it. And then the second stage, we're going to emulsify it. So once the fat has been cut, we're going to do the exact same thing with the meat, nice small pieces. And this is the piece that we reserved. This is what we're going to add at the end of the recipe. Here's how I want to process this. I want to cut this up into relatively consistent sized cubes that are fairly small, under half-inch cubes. But really, at the end of the day, it's up to you. This is your mortadella. If you want bigger pieces and smaller pieces, that's totally fine. Some other popular ingredients that you can add are pistachios or black peppercorns. Those all make for a great mortadella. But we're just going to be sticking with our emulsion and our fat, and this is what all that looks like. I do have everything separate. So we have our fat, our meat, and our diced fat separated. Let's go ahead and blanch just that cubed fat first so that you can see what we're doing here. So in some boiling water, we're going to add that cubed fat. We're going to let it do its thing for about 3 minutes, and that is it. After 3 minutes, we can go ahead and remove it from the water and immediately cool it down. You can just cool it down by dipping it in some cold water or spraying it with some cold water. Either way, but once you have it completely cooled down, we want to dry it. So I'm going to place it in some paper towels and pop it in the fridge while we prepare the rest of our ingredients. This is our meat and our fat. It's still separated. And notice that it's really cold, nice and cold, partially frozen actually. And so what we're going to do here is just grind our fat first. We're going to keep these separate as well during this recipe. So fat in, notice that it's coming out beautifully. It's not smearing, which is a great sign. And now we're going to grind our meat. This is all on a 6mm plate. Any fat that comes out first, I'm just going to separate that. So we're going to take that and put it in the fat pile and finish grinding our meat. This is perfect, and we need it very cold, so back into the freezer it goes. Under 32 Fahrenheit is the goal. Let's look at our spices. We have got salt, we've got white pepper, we've got coriander, garlic powder, a little nutmeg, and the recipe will be in the description box below. We're also going to be adding a binder to this recipe. Potato starch is what I'm using, and I'm going to keep it separate. We've got wine and water. That's there. There's our spices in the middle. And then our binder right there on the end. And those are all going to stay separate. The wine I do want to be partially frozen and chilled, so we're going to take that and place it in the freezer with our meat and our fat because that's going to help keep the temperature cold during our emulsion. Okay, so far so good. This is what our blanched fat looks like. I put it in between some paper towels. It's dried up quite nicely. It's been in the refrigerator, and now it's time to get this ingredient ready. So let me just go ahead and remove it from the paper towels. The reason you want to dry it and the reason you want to keep it in the fridge is because we want that skin to create a bit of a pellicle, very slight pellicle, so that it can grab on to the potato starch that we're about to add. This potato starch is going to help the fat stick with our emulsion. If you don't add a potato starch or a cornstarch or a non-fat dry powdered milk, then your fat particles are just going to pop right out whenever you slice your mortadella. So this is a little secret that maybe nobody talks about when it comes to this particular ingredient. So I'm just going to make sure that each one of those pieces are properly dusted with this potato starch. Once they're properly dusted, they're going to be good to go, and at which point we can just set them to the side. And so as you can see here, I'm just tossing it a few times, and that's what it's going to look like. These are ready for our mortadella. We're going to set it to the side until we need to use them, and it's now time to emulsify all our ingredients. Our wine is nice and semi-frozen. Our meat and fat is extremely cold. I recommend under 32 degrees. I think the meat is somewhere around 28. So there we go. And then our fat is even lower, 26. You're going to find that during this emulsion process, when you stick it in your food processor, the temperature does have a tendency to jump up on you pretty quick. So the colder, the better you can have it. And another little tip, you want the blades on your food processor to be razor sharp. If they're not razor sharp, you're going to end up just whipping your meat rather than chopping it, and that's going to give you the wrong texture. So let's add our meat and our spices. That's all that's in here right now, meat and our spices, and we're going to chop that for about 30 seconds. Once our meat and our spices have been chopped for about 30 seconds, I'm going to add just a little bit of that wine water mixture. That's going to help loosen the batter. And it's also going to help keep everything nice and cold. And so we're going to chop this for another 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and you're going to start to see that batter come together. What we're looking for is the temperature of this batter to remain under 45 degrees. As you can see right here, we were just at 29, so we got plenty of space. The more you chop it, the more that is going to start to look like a paste, like pink goo. And notice how the meat is making its way around the food processor. That's how you know you're moving in the right direction. At this point, I'm going to add a little bit more ice cold wine, and at each addition, I'm adding roughly a third of my mixture. We're going to chop for another 30 seconds, and look at the texture of the meat after this chop. This is what yours should look like. Very nice. Temperature should be under 45. Remember, very critical, because right here we're doing a lot of protein extraction, and we're at 39, so a lot of room to play with. Scrape the walls down. Be careful not to cut yourself on the blades, especially if they're razor sharp. And your mixture should have some density to it. It shouldn't be soft or pillowy. It should be a little firm. So let's now go ahead and add our ice cold fat along with our potato starch, and we are almost there. Let's close it off, continue mixing. And what we're doing here is chopping our meat and fat so that it becomes one homogeneous batter. We're going to go ahead and add the rest of our wine mixture. So now we have no more wine. And we're looking for a consistency that's smooth, where the fat particles and the meat particles are no longer discernible. The temperature should stay below 55 degrees Fahrenheit. If you get too much over 55 degrees Fahrenheit, your emulsion can split. And look at that, I'm at 54, 53.9, absolutely perfect. If you're not done chopping, you can always pop this back in the freezer for 30 minutes and then continue chopping, but you don't want the temperature to be over 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's now go ahead and pop this into our mixer and add our cubed back fat that's been blanched. This is going to give us that absolutely gorgeous marbling. I want you to pay attention to the batter at this stage. See how it's still relatively firm? I want it to be very, very soft. So I'm going to add maybe a quarter cup of water just to loosen it up a little bit during this stage. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. So depending on what your batter looks like, you may not need to add any water right here, or you may add 2 or 3 tablespoons. It's up to you. But we want the batter to be very soft, very, very sticky. And that's what I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and get this into a casing. I'm going to be using the largest casing I have, which in this case is a 100 millimeter collagen casing from the Sausage Maker. If you don't know by now, we get all of our casings from the Sausage Maker. Absolutely amazing source for your charcuterie needs. I'll put a link to their website in the description box. Let's go ahead and rehydrate these. This is lukewarm water. 5 minutes is all we need. We're just going to soften it up. So I'm going to put some water on the inside, let it sit there for a couple minutes, and that is it. We are going to give this a nice little bubble knot at the very end, so the casing doesn't open up as we're filling it, because we do want to stuff this in super tight. So I'm putting a relatively decent amount of pressure on that casing as we're stuffing it. This is going to greatly reduce the amount of mechanical openings in our mortadella sausage. A mechanical opening is the little air pockets that are typically found when you're stuffing your sausages. And, you know, classic mortadella, commercial mortadella, they use vacuum sealers to get rid of any of those air pockets. So this is just a great way to do it in the event you don't have a chamber vac. Our meat is stuffed. I am going to grab the last remaining bit out of that horn by using a sausage stuffing horn cleaner, push it on out, and that's just going to sit right on top. I mean, this looks great. This is exactly the texture we're looking for this mortadella. So let's tie it off fairly tight, and it's a little tricky to do with one hand, but we are going to do another bubble knot on that side, cut it off, and this is what our mortadella looks like. So now it's time to cook. I personally like to cook this sous vide. I think there's a lot more control in both the temperature and the time, so that's how we're going to be cooking it. 145 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 to 4 hours, and that is it. Set it and forget it. If you made this sausage correctly, when you go to open the bag, there should be no liquids, no fat rendered out. It should stay within your emulsion, and our 3 to 4 hours have passed. We're now going to place this into a ice water bath to cool it down fairly quickly. Once that's cooled down, we're going to place it into the refrigerator so that it can set up and get ready for the next day. It's now the next day. There is no liquid. There is no fat inside that bag. I mean, absolutely perfect. That means our emulsion didn't break. Everything looks great. This is what our mortadella looks like on the inside, and I am incredibly pleased. Beautiful color, great texture, and I like the fat distribution. A few mechanical openings, but that's to be expected. Not that big a deal. Let's go ahead and slice it up and give it a taste.
Our classic mortadella, I'm very pleased with the way this came out. I mean, great texture. Our fat has bound itself with the meat. And just remember that little tip. If you're going to be adding cubed fat or, you know, pistachios, olives, it doesn't matter. Give them a little dusting of some potato starch or some high heat non-fat dry milk, and then add them to your mix at the very end, and it'll bind to the meat beautifully. You don't have to worry about it falling out. When you're slicing it, no problem. That smells wonderful. I'm picking up the wine and the subtleties of all the different spices that we used. Wow, and the texture is perfect. It's got a little bit of a springiness, which is what we're looking for. If you try to make this and your food processor blades are dull, what you're going to end up doing is like whipping air into the meat batter, and it's going to create this almost like pillowy texture. It's very difficult to describe. It's still going to be edible. It's just not going to be that velvety, quality that mortadella is known for. All right, so let's just go ahead and give it a taste. This is just a beautiful, thin little slice here. Mortadella. Oh, that's the stuff right there. Classic mortadella. I mean, the fat is super tender. It's very flavorful. We've got a lot of different spices working well with each other. The wine is definitely coming in a little bit stronger than I personally like, so I think maybe the next time I make it, I'll probably come off the wine just a tiny bit. I hope you get a chance to try it. If you have any questions about this classic Italian emulsified sausage, mortadella, leave them in the comment section below. And if you found this video helpful or entertaining, A great big thumbs up is always appreciated. Don't forget to head down to the description box and check out Kotai Knives. Incredible selection, beautiful craftsmanship. If you're new to this channel, take a moment, click that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss a single one of our uploads. Thanks for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.